Welcome to Unraveling Success. I am so excited about today's episode because I have two of my favorite people with us today. I have Whitney Elsen, who is the leader of personal lines here at Aspire Insurance Group, as well as Kaitlyn Jensen, who is Aspire Insurance Group's agency manager. And so a little mashup of episodes is what we're going to do on a quarterly basis. And Unraveling Success, the whole purpose of Unraveling Success is to kind of flesh out and demystify success journeys and learn some tips and tricks along the way. Maybe you can skip some of the, pain points that happen in any success journey. And so sometimes in order to learn and digest, it's good to revisit what the ahas are, or maybe discuss some of the key insights that you took away from different episodes. So the first 6 episodes, I'm going to just recap them, and then we're going to jump in and just discuss each one. Was Kim Peterson with KPT Mortgage, Dr. Jennifer Shoop with Croyview Chiropractic, Sarah Capecchi with Capecchi and Company, Carrie Wallace with Agency Focus, Dustin Winter with Metro Garage, and Kelly Donahue-Piro with Agency Performance Partners. That being said, welcome Whitney and Kaitlyn. I'm so excited to do this together with you guys. It'll be really fun. I've always wanted to have you guys as part of this podcast because you were so you were there when it was all pulling together, and it's just fun to do something collaboratively.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting us do this.
Yeah, excited. Super. Yeah. Okay. So let's just jump straight in and let's chat a little bit. So our first guest was Kim Peterson. We all know Kim. All of us do. And so Kim is KPT Mortgage. And I'm going to actually have you guys start with what your guys' is. I have some takeaways, but I want to hear what your guys' was.
Yeah, I guess I can go first. So with Kim, the title of her, the podcast was Trials Reveal Your Passion. And, that's something I can relate to just because of in the seats that I've been, especially in my journey through Aspire, and making sure work is bringing you joy and the relationships that you have, was something that I really took away from it. And then being the first women-owned mortgage brokerage in Minnesota, had no idea. I would have never known that. So, and she talks a lot about cultural fit. And, we are really big on also our culture at Aspire. And so there's a lot of just different things that I took away from that aligned with the values that we have.
Yeah. I agree with that for sure. One of my things was, when she talked about helping others with really big changes, and that could be, things like buying a home or going through divorce, things like that. And she talked about her story about her friend that they haven't connected for a while. And she ended up helping them. And then she was like, this is why I do this. That's those moments when you're helping others like that you're like, okay, this is why this is my passion. And I think we can all relate to that. That's where we all
live. Yeah. It's funny because, one thing that we talk about in our organization, right, is that we want to approach what we're doing as we're in the helping profession. And that's how Kim approaches mortgages. I thought it was really interesting because she had always felt like I guess I couldn't necessarily say a lack of passion, but she always felt well, what am I passionate about? And so to see that her passion for helping was furthered really through one of her hardest trials that she navigated. So I think that that's a really interesting insight that sometimes passion is born through the hard times. It's not necessarily just something that's always there. It's something that can be developed and probably changes over time too. So, but yeah, I couldn't believe that. I mean, the first woman-owned mortgage brokerage in Minnesota, like
Yeah.
in it. So I think they incorporated in, was it 2023? I
Yep.
think it's in that. Yeah. So, I mean, that just absolutely shocked me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
know that. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm. I also thought, when with her career, that, I mean, what a way to roll the dice on yourself. If you'll remember, one of the things that she, what did she gave herself like a few month window to make a go of it or not. Like, am I going to be able to do this, or can I do this, or, and then it worked out for her. But I mean, that's a scary thing to kind of roll the dice and give yourself, a time frame in order to make a go of it.
Yeah. And just like how like everything comes back around to like with, like the people on her team, and they're like, hey, like, let's do this together too. That takes a lot of power, because it's like, oh, like, we work together. Are they going to think that, there's a lot of that stuff. And so to see them be successful, and for where Kim is at, like when, like you say, KPT Mortgage, or hey, I'm talking with Kim Peterson, like I think of the pink power suit, like, okay, like she's a girl boss, like she definitely is growing and has a lot of good things coming to her. So.
Yeah. I had to laugh when the first thing she never wanted was bright pink. That's what it became.
Mm-hmm. So funny.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah, it's an inspiring story, and she has a lot to offer, and they're gonna that brokerage is gonna go to really awesome places. So, well, let's chat on. So, the next episode was Dr. Jennifer Shoop from Croyview Chiropractic. So Kaitlyn, you started last time. What do you wanna start this time?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, for sure. I know Jen, kind of, not, I haven't sat down and talked too much, but I do know her. And I did not know the story about the twins and her husband. I did not know. I kind of knew of it, but not like the whole story. And I just thought like that was so cool to learn, that I didn't know that all of that happened right when she was starting and everything. I just thought that was really cool and kind of empowering, like, because you just never know like what can happen, and she just stayed strong and kept going. I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I agree big time. One of my takeaways from her story was, I think a lot of times, first of all, starting any business from scratch like she did is just really hard. Like, there's extra grind to it. But then I also think, like, there's so oftentimes this idea that you have to pick between being a mom or being a successful entrepreneur or business owner, or just being successful in general in what you're doing. And I mean, she really proves that, like, it's not a either or thing. You don't necessarily have to lay down a successful career in order to be a really good present mom,
Yeah, I think like for me, like I can relate to her a lot, like, and everyone's story is different, but there's a lot of things that, like, for me, like on my personal journey of being a mom and not knowing like where my career was going to take me at a time, like it's very similar of my daughter worked with me for years and we watched her grow up. Because it was during COVID times, and so she was always there and welcome into all of our meetings and on the phone calls, and now we're at 4. She's still in these meetings, not as frequent, but because I knew that, like, I wanted to have that flexibility but I need my time to work and to support my team, but also be a mom.
Yeah.
And so that's been something that was really, helpful to be like, oh, okay, like I'm not the only one that, kind of goes through these things. Everybody does go through them, but you never really talk to a lot of people that do. And like, with her husband getting sick, and like I went through something similar like that when my daughter was young with my husband. So it's just very different where when you're like, oh wow, like you made this go of it, and you had way more on you than I had. I just had a child and a job, and my husband's sick. So seeing where, what happened and where she is now, by listening to it, it's really powerful, and there isn't any roadblocks. You just keep going over.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I just couldn't not imagine the compounding effect of the sequence of events that she navigated.
Yeah.
And then just watching her now. I mean, she's just created an amazing community around her. The clinic is really, you can feel the energy there. Like and it's very much like family centric, like especially moms and children, like that is, that's like the hub, and you can just, it's really cool. It's also so neat to see someone like really, their passion so strongly like ingrained, and like there's such a thread that is in her organization, and it reflects her passion like so much. And I just think it's really neat to see. Yeah. I've always had a lot of respect for Jennifer, but after hearing that story, I was like, that is in the you can't make it up category. And it is a very inspiring, and it's very inspiring. Yeah. So next up, our next guest was Sarah Capecchi with Capecchi and Company. So she is a real estate extraordinaire. She's very inspiring too. I mean, there isn't anybody who hasn't been. So, Kaitlyn, do you want to kick us off with your takeaways with Sarah?
Yeah. So, with Sarah, like I've been a raving fan of hers for a long time already. I watched her on social media, and, we've worked with her, and, being able to like, she's kind of like in that era of like, she's teaching like young entrepreneurs to do these things, and the realtors, and like hearing where like she started, where she is going to. But one of the big things that like I took from her is showing up for yourself every day and ready, that with that piece of things. Cause there's times where like, working at home, absolutely cozy pants, everything. But it does make a big difference if you do like go and get ready and just show up for yourself. And, always looking to see what the best thing that can happen in any situation. Was really, really happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that you
said
that, because yesterday Beth and I were just talking about that. And I was thinking about Sarah's podcast and just how, intentionally getting yourself ready, feeling good each day. And it truly does help. Like getting up, getting ready, like, and it's not, getting ready isn't like wearing makeup. At least to me, it's not like get up, put makeup on, like all that stuff. It's more like get up and like wash my face and do like those things.
Yeah.
And it just helps so much. Like it's crazy how much better, like, and more proactive I can be on those days. I think we can all relate to that with working from home and, choosing to get up and get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's so true. And we were just talking about that yesterday, weren't we, Whitney? Yeah. It was because I got stuck in that rut too with working from home. And that was something with Sarah that was a big takeaway for me too. And I did a class on this. It's called Enclosed Cognition. And it is basically like how you dress actually signals your brain like what mode to be in. So like if you're in your pajamas or your cozy clothes, you're going to be more loungy and laid back. versus like if you're in like a suit or you have, you know, a dress on or whatever, like it gives your brain signals of how to show up. And that was really a compelling class that I took because I had been so lazy, and I actually got to a point where I almost didn't know how to like get ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I don't. And then that when I started like actually putting more effort into it, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize actually like that's a really slippery slope.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, for the days that we work from home. Now, if I do end up in sweats, it's not like it doesn't happen. But it's like I'm going to choose it intentionally. It's not just like a pattern that I follow, you know? So, I mean, there's still room for it, but it's also not like going to be what it all the time that way.
For sure.
Yeah. The other takeaway I had with Sarah was I just like I was laughing so hard because we both fired our first coach.
That was the other thing I had written down too.
Yeah.
So
that I mean that experience for me was it was really weird, especially because I was really early on in business, and I know Sarah was too. And so you really don't actually like you don't really have the confidence to do that, even though you know it's the right decision. It's a very interesting like headspace to be in because you really don't know what you're doing, and you know that you don't know what you're doing, but then you know that this person isn't the right fit. But is it because you don't know what you're doing?
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of like, it's like you grow and then at that person where you're like, oh wait, no, this isn't right. Just that feeling of, you know, even firing the first coach, like, oh gosh, like, am I going to find someone? Are they all the same? Is this the right? There's a lot of that doubt and, you know, having to find that right person and the right fit. And that's just like, you know, in all of the, you know, so far in this series of the people that have done the interviews, it's all been about the culture. It's like, is it your culture? Is this someone that can also help boost you and uplift you? Things.
Yeah. One of the things that Sarah talked about was, you know, building a team and how challenging that can be. And one of the things that I felt like I really noticed that she's done a good job of is holding the line as far as what her expectations are. You know, like she has certain expectations and a certain quality of work and a certain way that she wants her company to show up, and she's not compromised on that. And it can be easy to compromise on that. But I think it's probably one of many things that has really held her reputation to a higher standard. Which I think is props to her, because those things are easy to say with your mouth, but when it comes to the actual like decision making and following through, it's hard.
For sure.
Yes. Do you guys have any other Sarah takeaways?
Yeah, I think the firing the coach was like just staying true to herself with that. I just thought that was really cool. Because I feel like if I was in her position, that would be really hard to do. And I'm sure it was, but just staying true to herself, staying strong and doing it. She knew it was best for her and sticking to it. That's good.
Yeah, I agree. So after Sarah, we had Carrie Wallace with Agency Focus on the podcast. Whit, do you want to kick us off with your takeaways with Carrie?
Yeah. So one thing that she said that, hers is, they're all really good. These are the selection of people we had to go through is really good. But one of the things that stuck out to me was she said that surrounding yourself with smart people and the right people. And I think you can take that in multiple ways, like professionally and personally. who you're surrounding yourself with is very important. And it's one of those things that I don't think you notice in the moment. But if you're around toxic people and you step back and see that, after those moments that you realize, like, oh, that was really impacting me, and not in a good way. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, it's like a slow fade, right? Like you don't notice it in incrementally, but if you flash forward, even like a year, it's like it you can look backwards and be like, how did I get here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's something that all of us, we've even seen true where it's like, oh wow, like that was a little spicy. What was I thinking? And you also can learn from it and turning it from learning from that piece. Then you try not to do it again and those types of things, and just growing within that. So.
Yeah. How about you, Kaitlyn?
Yeah, for me, so something that Carrie had said was, working for a company like you own it, acting like you own it. And that's something that for me, since like I started my career, I would say, because my career has been just in insurance. But that's always been like, it's like I own this business. Like I'm going to make sure that it is, I do my best because of course, like I'm a face of it. Like I want to make sure that it's going well. I believe in it. I care about it. And so that was something that where when you're working for a company and just like you own it and, but also being able to have that too, because there are places where people are like, well, I can't really act like that because I don't have that. And so, it was really cool to hear her say that. And like with her being like agency focused and that type of thing where like she can go in and go out like that. And it's like, yeah, I can help you with how to build your business or where it's at or finding, valuations, that type of thing. Like it's my own. And so just putting that, giving that as a value in itself, it's like, oh, okay. Like I know I'm with the right person. I know what I'm doing. And then also having an abundant mindset. I really like that really is taken hold and has popped into my mind a few different times of that.
Yeah. 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 She is, I think in the episode I called her a unicorn, and it's so true because one of the things that just absolutely fascinates me about her is, typically people like her that are, data and finance and like they're really linear, which is, I mean, that's fine. That's not bad. But you usually then don't have the adaptability and the creativity and the visionary side of it too. Yeah. She has both.
Yeah.
So I just feel like, I mean, this is a line I've said many times about her, but I'm like, I feel like I get smarter every time I talk.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Well, and there's that weird thing of surround yourself with smart people.
I know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Other takeaways on Carrie? I wrote down that one of the things that I noted this was that she always wants to leave like people, places, things. She wants to leave them better than when she came.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is I've spent time with Carrie, and she actually like does do that. Like, and it's interesting because when she said that, I was like, it's easy to say words. But actually I can say like, I can see that in action with her, which I think is really neat. And just the fact that like, part of her definition of success is impacting others. And which I think is so interesting because when we start discussing definitions of success, so much of it, first of all, it doesn't really have anything to do about like the amount of money you're making or if you drive a nice vehicle or live in a fancy house. It's not that. But so oftentimes it's the fulfilling things come outside of ourselves when you're lifting other people up. It's when you're impacting those around you for the better, which I thought is, it's insightful because that's actually where like true happiness comes in, when you can get to a point where like you're solid at, in your career and your business, but you're able to be in a point where you can reach and lift up others. Like that's just really, I really liked that.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. So our next guest was Dustin Winter. So Dustin owns Metro Garage. And so tell me what your takeaways, Kaitlyn. Do you want to get us started?
Yeah. So Dustin, with that self-leadership fuels success, so like these titles are like, oh, these are great titles of like really of how that whole wrap up is. But, having a team that buys in too is really, especially like in that industry and in any industry, like your team needs to be able to buy in and like know that, like to have that belief. Like also like they're taking priority over like of certain things and not like squirreling, you could say. That was some things that like I really took away, and and it's okay to like have your opinions and it's okay to be wrong. Like you said, because when you all come together and be like, okay, well, we may have differences here or there, but like, at the end of the day, we can come together, work as a team and be successful, because that's always our goal. And then, something that really stood out to me too is like, if there's someone that, needs to leave, needs a break from work, or there's something going on, like the door is still always open if they need to like leave his business and come back. And I think that he just gives a lot of empathy to his team, and that's a really, really great thing to have for a leader too.
And in an industry that you wouldn't typically expect it, which I think makes it, it's almost like adds like magic to it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
There's a lot of care and thought behind it, and just wanting the best for your employees and being a leader. So.
Yeah. For sure. How about you, Whit?
How he, he said he like went from like a bad culture to good culture. And I think for a leader to experience that, I think it's helpful for them to know how to then lead. I just think that's really important. It doesn't mean that everyone has to go through like a bad culture, but I just think it is helpful to kind of see. And then just like his leadership style, just being very intentional. And like you said, like it kind of sets them apart, hiring wise, that they, will leave the door open and always here type thing with the situations and things like that. And I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah. One of my takeaways with him was, when he talks about the difference between, how when he had been in business finance, he thought like, oh yeah, I know all this. I know how to do all this stuff. And, conceptually, like he did. But when you actually are like hands-on and you're in it, that's a whole different world. And so him talking about, he was like, I think I might have just made like the biggest mistake ever, but from doing this. And I think that's so interesting because there's Darren Hardy has a book called The Entrepreneurial Roller Coaster. And that is one thing that I think that I wasn't ready for when I first started just my book of business. Like the emotional roller coaster that happens when you are in entrepreneurship is like significant. Like it really can, mess with your brain. So just hearing him say that was like, oh gosh, boy, can I ever understand? Because I mean, I went from, like myself personally, I went from, working inside an agency to, going out on my own. And I would have always just been like, well, I know insurance, but actually like the emotions that come with it was completely unexpected. Like, and I wish I would have, like, I mean, I kind of wish someone would have said something, but it's like, how does that conversation work? Like,
Yeah, totally.
So that was one thing that really stood out to me. And then, just the fact that he cares so much, and I can definitely tell with him, like eternal optimist, like sees the best and the good and the potential in each person. Which makes, he definitely leads with a lot of empathy. You can see it. And I think that's inspiring, especially when you're dealing with like garage door company. Like you wouldn't expect that to be in that type of business, which I think is like really refreshing. One of my other takeaways with him is in that garage space, he's just like super innovative.
Yeah.
And he's doing some things that are really kind of would drive that industry forward. I mean, like one of the things specifically, and this was not talked about in the podcast, but it is something that I think is really cool, is he has moved in his company to 2-person teams. And so it's opened up this entire demographic for, like women to be garage techs now, because, since they're going in teams, it wouldn't be such an extreme from a labor standpoint. And also when you do that, it creates more camaraderie versus one person, teams going, not teams, like one person going out to a job and then everybody's just acts as like an island. Whereas when you have 2 people going out on jobs, like obviously their safety is better. But beyond that, like you're building camaraderie and like, so you have a better culture. So, those are a couple things that I really away from him. So yeah, it's fun to see too, like how the skills and that we're talking about, all these different pieces that create success it's transferable. It's not just applicable in one business.
Yeah.
It's applicable it's a transferable skill. Like you can move it around,
Right. And I feel like it's not just one position either. It's for business owner or even just agency manager or personal lines lead, like things like that. Like it's for everybody in every role and business. I think that's what is special about podcasting.
I agree. I totally agree. You can learn, there's so much wisdom in learning, with hearing people's stories and hearing hard things that they went through, and they even just being able to relate to some of it. I mean, there's been so many things like that I've been able to relate to people in, and then it just normalizes it. It makes you feel like, oh, that maybe I'm not so strange after all, Yeah. So, our 6th guest we had was Kelly Donahue-Piro with Agency Performance Partners. And that is one, I will tell you, well, really actually with every single guest, I could just talk forever.
Right.
Kelly is definitely one that I could talk forever because her and I definitely are, have the same type of engagement in our personal and professional growth. We have been in business around the same amount of time. And what really made me realize that Kelly is, well, there's 2 things I can say. When I was like, she's a kindred spirit for me is we did 75 Hard together. And a lot of times when you do those type of challenges, you don't have like a strong counterpart for a partner. And she was like in it, like I was in it. Like we were both in it and committed, and we both succeeded. And it was just really fun to do that with her. And then this is the second one, which isn't, but she has a pit bull too. So I was like, so I just thought, we love you. So I don't remember where I was. Who started last time with takeaways?
Right.
Yeah. Do you want to start us?
Okay. I just really loved it. She's like, I came home and I said to my husband, like, I'm leaving my 6-figure job. And that was just hilarious. Like, I can just imagine, like, I don't know her husband or anything, but I can just imagine, like, being like, what? Type thing.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really funny. And, look where she's at today. And she's, I mean, I feel like we talk about her often in the agency. Just watch a Kelly video, or, it's just like, it's great. If you're in a bad mood, just go watch a Kelly video. You'll be fine.
It's true. They put it in perspective, don't they? Like, it's honest and then kind of funny.
Right. Yeah. So, I just thought that was so funny. And then, yeah, it's just really cool to see where she's at now and how far she's come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. This one, all of everyone that so far has been on the podcast is, they're all amazing, and we work with them a lot. And so there's like just one thing about Kelly, like there's a little spot in my heart for her, because she has helped us grow so much. And, as a team, for me as a leader too, I've really been able to, with what Kelly brings to the table, it's amazing. So having her on the podcast was a fun treat. So because we got to ask her questions and have a little bit more insight too. But one thing, with her leaving her job and that type of thing, that definitely that takes some guts.
Yeah.
For sure. But to know she believed in herself, and she believed that she could do it. And that's something that, we always need that reminder. And letting the socks go, that's kind of like my new thing. I'm like, I just need to let the socks go. Like in anything, letting the socks go.
Yeah, she has a lot of good one-liners too.
Oh, great.
We talk about Jane the Frog, all the time. Yep, and oh my gosh, and I think every time I think of Kelly now, socks come into my mind.
Right.
That was so funny.
Yeah,
it was amazing. Like, that was so good.
that it's such a good analogy. And then being like servant leadership, that's really, she has a servant heart for agencies and for people, and I'm just very grateful for her. And I think it's because she's just so much woven into my career, and hearing her story really helped.
Yeah, but it's interesting too, to add to that, is she does have a servant's heart, but she's also like no BS.
Yes,
she's so she has something special about her delivery of it, that it just this has been a really common thread through many of our guests, but it's just like taking a chance and rolling the dice on yourself.
Absolutely.
I mean, we can all relate to that. Like, sometimes you just gotta jump in and know that you can do it, know that you can figure it out. And I thought that was that was really good. She was fun. Very fun. So let's do a little bit of compare and contrast. So are there any common, I just said it, but common threads that, between people, or compare and contrast? Like, one of the things that I had mentioned earlier that I noticed was that, there isn't one way, or there's not one right way or a wrong way. But for example, Sarah had mentioned in her podcast that she didn't, want to be the mom that was bringing her kids to showings. That's not the image that she wanted to portray. And she was really clear on that. But then in contrast, and there's no, like I said, there's no right or wrong, but, Dr. Jennifer is, brought her kids to work with her, still have, there's still an element of, some of her team that can bring kids from time to time, and that type of thing. So what are some other, commonalities or compare and contrast that you notice between people?
Yeah. I think, you kind of already said it, but all of them took a chance on themselves. And fully believed in themselves. And I think that's what got them to where they are. You know, I think if they wouldn't have believed in themselves when they took that extra step, I don't think they would have gotten this far. And it's really cool to see, because I feel like everyone is still growing. It's not like they got to where they are. They're still like going, you know, taking that next further step, which is really fun. Like, you know, like we see Sarah on social media all the time, and it's just so fun to watch her just every day. Like you see your Instagram stories, and it's awesome. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah. Which I think kind of would point to the direction that so much of the joy is actually in the journey. Mm-hmm. It's not like success isn't like a destination, right? It's not. It's just a ever evolving like journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't stop, and it never will, really. Because like everybody, you know, that's on this path, like from the 6 people that has been interviewed, is, you know, they all started somewhere, and then they ended up where they are now, all as owners and successful in their own terms of what they feel their success is. But it also, everyone's kind of comes in together where, yes, we're in different industries and there's different roadblocks passed, but like everyone still is growing, and they're not just, okay, I'm content, I'm good, like let's just ride the wave. Like we're always chasing after more, but we're happy, we're content within, like, okay, like this is going well, like I want to keep going, like this is my why.
Right. And it's not I'll be happy when, like everybody, it seems like they are it's they're content where they're at, but they're just not complacent. Like they are, you know, their happiness isn't hinged on getting to a certain place, or once I reach this, then I'll, you know, be happy. Like they're happy in their moment now. Also, one of the things that has really popped in my head too is there's like no perfect time to start. Like look at, you know, Carrie, she started Agency Focus 3 years ago after a successful career as a CFO, you know? So, I mean, you know, whereas like, you know what I mean? Like it's all over the board as far as like when people actually started. Look at Kim Peterson. She just started a brokerage last year, you know? So, there isn't like there's not like a perfect time to start. You can start early, you can start later, and still be successful.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing too that, you know, everyone touched is team, and they're, you know, and I've talked about it too, like the team culture, and, you know, and how they build theirs, and, you know, what they want someone to bring to the table, and finding the right fit. And so it's really cool to see where, and I can see, like, knowing a lot of these people, like, oh yeah, like I can see why you did it this way or that way, where it's always finding the perfect fit, because your team is going to help lead the way to.
It's true. And that success, it doesn't happen alone.
No.
It's a village, you know, it takes, because it's not even just, it's not only just a team of like people collectively doing things together, but then like having a supportive spouse that's willing to cheer you on and pick you up when you know, don't want to get back up again, you know? So it really is not a singular, it's never a singular person, you know?
Yeah. I think that's a good point. And I think, you know, it's fun to hear like other people's like team stories and their culture and how they got there and everything. Just because I feel like even in just 3 years, we've seen a lot of that, of just trying to find like the best fit for our culture. And it's very important to all of us. And so it's fun to hear like other people's story with that.
Yeah, I agree. And you can relate to so much of it, you know, where you're like, oh yeah, that's us too, you know. So you know, for the people that are really trying to be intentional about setting their culture and adhering to it, and where it's, you know, clearly defined, and it's, you know, when you start comparing notes It's a very common,
Yeah.
there's a lot of commonalities in like the experience around it, Yeah. All right. Well, Kaitlyn and Whitney, I love talking to you guys, as you know. We talk a lot, very often. But this is fun, and I'm excited to see what our next 6 look like, and to kind of take a little time and pull the proverbial car on the side of the road and just like marinate a little on the things that we've learned and our takeaways, and just taking a moment to identify them. So maybe there's a couple of things that you'll do different, or a point of view that you'll have that's different moving forward. So thank you guys.
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks.